Hi there and welcome back to the channel. If you are here for the first time, you're most welcome, and guys, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. So this week's case is on Hannah Cornelius, and it's just one of those devastating cases because the murder was very senseless. It's one of those things that didn't have to happen, but it did happen, and it just left a lot of people devastated along the way. So this is Hannah Cornelius. She was born in 1996 and she's just a beautiful girl. She was described as being exceptional, compassionate, and just generally loving. These are her parents, Willem and Anna Cornelius, and her dad worked as a magistrate, so which means he's a judge, and her mother worked as a lawyer. So Hannah grew up pretty much privileged, but people say that she was very down to earth and she was just loving and just a good person. In 2016, she started attending the University of Stellenbosch and she was studying a BA in humanities. So let's fast forward to the 26th of May 2017. It was a Friday and she went out with her friends, and her friends were just doing what students do on a Friday night. They were just having fun. They went out drinking with just a group of friends, and it was around 2 a.m. so it's now Saturday the 27th of May. So around 2 a.m. it was time to go back home, and Hannah had a friend called Cheslin Mesh, and Cheslin had a skateboard. He skateboarded everywhere, so he's like, no, he's gonna skateboard back to his place. It wasn't far from where they were, so he decided to skateboard back to his place, and Hannah is like, no, I can't let you skateboard during this time, and she offered Cheslin a lift. And Hannah actually had a City Golf, and she had gotten the City Golf as a gift from her grandmother, so she offered Cheslin a lift, and that was the last time her friends ever saw Hannah alive. Later on that day, on the 27th of May, around 8 or 9 a.m., farm workers in a farm were just fixing sprinklers around the farm, and then they noticed something that was covering one of the sprinklers, and initially they thought it was a doll because from far it looked like a doll, and when they went up close, they sadly discovered the body of 21-year-old Hannah Cornelius. It said that her body was in a very bad shape. She had clearly been beaten with something big, and it said that her face was actually unrecognizable and there were signs of sexual trauma on the body. So police really started investigating the case quickly, and they were able to determine that the body belonged to Hannah Cornelius. And then when they started interviewing people, they found out that she had last been seen with Cheslin Mesh earlier on that morning at 3 a.m. and her City Golf was actually missing. So police were on the lookout for Cheslin Mesh and also the City Golf car. And one of the constables who was investigating the case was a man called Constable Sigo. And Constable Sigo was just doing his detective work, and he noticed Hannah's car and it was being driven by two men. So he started following the car and he ended up calling for backup, and a high-speed chase followed between the car and the police. So the high-speed chase ended up at a farm because the gate was closed and there were security guards who were closing the gate. So the men saw that there was nowhere they could go, so they ended up getting out of the car and they made a run for it. However, police quickly caught them. The men who were driving the car were Vernon Witbooi and Geraldo Parsons, and Vernon Witbooi actually ended up confessing after he was arrested as to why they had Hannah's car and what actually happened to Hannah Cornelius and Cheslin Mesh. Now I'm gonna tell you guys what happened the Saturday of the 27th of May, and we know what happened because of Vernon's confession, but his co-accused also have a different storyline, but there's also CCTV footage to confirm this storyline. So according to Vernon, on the 27th of May, he was just chilling with his friends and they decided to go to Stellenbosch because Stellenbosch is a student town and it was after payday, so most students had just received money from home. So they decided to go to Stellenbosch to see what they could find. And on their way to a flat, they noticed a car in the parking lot, and this was around 3 a.m. and in the car there were two people in the car, and those people were Hannah Cornelius and Cheslin Mesh. So they decided to rob the people in the car. So they actually had a screwdriver with them. So they approached the car, and when they approached the car, Geraldo went to Cheslin, and Vernon went to Hannah's side, and they robbed Cheslin of his wallet and his phone. Not alone, they were joined by two other people, Eben van Niekerk and Nashville Julius. And after they robbed Cheslin, one of the friends, Nashville Julius, actually left. He went back to where he was going. So after Nashville left, there were 5 of them, and they decided to go to an ATM to withdraw money from Cheslin's account. And they actually put Cheslin in the boot of the car, and then they forced Hannah to sit in front. Geraldo was driving, and at the back seat were Vernon Witbooi and Eben van Niekerk. And this is where the hell ride from hell actually began. After they left the parking lot where Cheslin's flat was, they drove to a place called Kraaifontein, and there they went to buy drugs. They bought tik and dagga, and they smoked it. And after they bought that tik and dagga, they actually went to another person. They went to fetch another person. This person was never identified. He was never caught, but they called him Kafriki, and Kafriki, it said that he was a black man. So they took Kafriki, and Kafriki joined them in the car. So after they got this man, they went to withdraw the money from Cheslin's account. They stopped at a garage. They opened the boot, and they actually took Cheslin's jacket, and they told him to give them the pin for his account, but Cheslin actually gave them the wrong pin number. So Geraldo actually went into the garage, and he tried to withdraw money from Cheslin's account, but he was unsuccessful because Cheslin had given them the wrong pin number. So he went back into the car, and they drove off. And this time they were very mad at Cheslin because Cheslin had given them the wrong pin number. They drove for a while, and then they stopped, and then when they stopped, they opened the boot, and then they took Cheslin out of the boots, and they were very mad at him for giving him the wrong number. And they told him to put his head on a stone, and then he says the last thing he remembers was men with stones, and they were hitting him with stones, and soon he lost consciousness, and they left him for dead. But Cheslin didn't actually pass away. He actually was able to regain consciousness in the early morning, and he crawled his way for help, and he was taken to hospital. So Cheslin actually recovered from the attack. After they've left Cheslin for dead, they then went to another location, and that's where they repeatedly raped Hannah. After they raped Hannah, they got back into the car, and they drove for a while, and then they ended up stopping at just a sidewalk of the farm where Hannah's body was found. And they say that Hannah didn't want to get out of the car, and I think she pretty much knew what was about to happen. And then one of the men actually took a screwdriver and stabbed Hannah on the neck, and then they actually pulled her out, and one of the men came back with the rock, and he hit Hannah with the rock on her face, and she died instantly. After they finished murdering Hannah, they drove off and went on a crime spree. Their third victim that day was in the early hours of the morning at around 6 or 7 a.m. There was a lady, she was going to work, and the men chased her, and then she actually tripped and fell, and then they robbed her of her phone and her wallet. And then the men actually disappeared for a while, so they were actually unaccounted for a while. It's suggested that they actually went back at home, and they changed their clothes, and they went to sleep. They then found their fourth victim of that day, a woman. She was just walking, and then the men actually kidnapped her. They forced her into Hannah's car. They actually held a gun to her head, and they took her cell phone and her wallet. They drove her to a garage. They asked her PIN number. She gave them her PIN number, and then they were able to withdraw money from her account. And then after they withdrew money from her account, they drove off again, and then they actually dropped off the woman, and they also dropped off Eben van Niekerk, and they actually gave him 1,000 rands and 2 cell phones just for his troubles for that day. After they dropped off the kidnapped woman and Vernon Witbooi, it's not clear when they actually dropped off Kafriki, but then there was now 2 people left in Hannah's car. It was Vernon Witbooi and Geraldo Parsons. They decided to go to a place called Delt, and they decided to sell the car. So on their way to sell the car, that's when they were spotted by Constable Sigo, and that's when the high-speed chase ensued, and that's when they were arrested. In 2018, Vernon Witbooi, Eben van Niekerk, and Geraldo Parsons were sentenced to life in prison for murder, attempted murder, robbery, and kidnapping, and Nashville Julius was actually sentenced to 15 years in prison for robbery and kidnapping. Cheslin Mash was actually able to recover from his tragic ordeal, and he was actually left deaf in one ear, but I did see a GoFundMe page and he did actually end up receiving a hearing aid, and I saw that he didn't actually return to school to finish his studies because, you know, it's very traumatic what he went through. And another tragic turn in the story is Hannah Cornelius, Hannah's mom, actually passed away in October 2018. She drowned. She was found floating in a beach in Cape Town. Her family also established the Hannah Cornelius Foundation, and it's based in Ocean View in Cape Town, and their aim is just to help out youth and the kids who are underprivileged. The end of this week's case, and please do let me know your comments in the comment section, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Thank you very much.